my dear friends, my lovely audiences, welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West Show with the glory with the G&E TV for many, many, many years. The name of the show, the title of the show is From the East to West. Have you ever asked yourself or asked me, how come you named the show that way? Okay, now I can tell you because I was bothered at the time. Having been here, back then, I've been here in this country for 30 years, now 36 years. It is always bothering me, the subject being that now, we are from a culture from the east side of the world, right? And we are entering ourselves into a culture, an ocean of the Western style. Are we supposed to strip ourselves, jump in the water naked? Or are we supposed to jump in the water wearing whatever I'm wearing? Or in between, right? That is exactly what bothered me that now. And for me, for the past 6 years with the show though, I try to promote, never sing a eulogy or a song or ode to anything that you believe is totally 100% good, because there's nothing of that kind. Never looking down upon anything that is 100% bad. There's nothing of that nature. It is a philosophical issue. It is a practical issue. It is a financial issue. It is a political issue. It is an economical issue. It is an educational issue. It is all kinds of issue combined. Today, finally, when I tell you, I confess to you how come I came to the title From the East to West, it is exactly because I came across a good friend of mine, another good friend of mine, Dr. Wei Yan. Dr. Wei Yan, warmly welcome to you. Please.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Wei Yan had been a doctor of physiology, and he was working in Wall Street for some active years, involved with the Lehman Brothers, and then in Hong Kong with the Hang Indicator, right? So how do you call the full name? Hang Seng.
Hang Seng, yeah.
Hang Seng Indicator.
Index. So I work for one of the component companies called City Pacific.
I see. And now he retired. He's focusing on this. Exactly why Jack Chow gets excited writing books, all right? From the Great Wall to Wall, to Great Wall Street Wall to Great Wall of China, wall to Wall Street. See, from the Great Wall to Wall Street. What a concept.
Yes.
What a concept. And then I turn this page. I hate to close it, so I just want to keep it. Yeah, keep it that way though, because later I will use it. So, just make a long story short. Yes. I know that your Lehman Brothers practice, your Hong Kong financial practice, all gave you a chances of warming up yourself,
yes,
touching the world, right, from the bottom line layer.
Yeah.
At which point though, did you see what you see and decide that you will write a book, The Great Wall to Wall Street?
That's a very good question, Jack. And well, first of all, thank you for having me here. and that very wonderful introduction of me. I have worked in the financial industry, beginning Wall Street, for about 23 years. And I was born in China. I grew up in Hong Kong. And I came into this country at the age of 17. So from then on, I stayed here until I was in the 40s. Then my company, Lehman Brothers, sent me back to Hong Kong to work. And because of my background and my language and all that, and I spent a lot of time working with Chinese government. And in the late 1990s, China was going through, under Premier Zhou Enqi, China was going through a lot of restructuring of state-owned enterprises. So we were interested in helping the Chinese banks to get rid of their non-performing loans. But they had a lot of them. At one point, people estimate Chinese financial institutions had about 40% non-performing loans. Now, when you have so much non-performing loans, there are two problems. Number one, you cannot lend. You don't have enough money to come back to lend. Number two, then you are below what you call the world standards, capital-wise. So what
was that the time they talk about the triangle loans?
Yeah, there are a lot of triangle loans. This is the cultural issue in China. Like, look, I borrow money to run a business. I sell my product to you, and for me to pay the bank, and you need to give me the payment. And then this guy sold his products to another person, and this other person doesn't give him back the money. So kind of linkage-wise, nobody gets paid.
There's a chain
reaction.
reaction.
There's a chain reaction. So this is very common in China, so-called the triangle loans. And then, of course, there's a cultural issue, and the Chinese people don't want to chase people too much. They will badger them and nag on them, but they don't take them to courts like they do here. So that's an issue. So what we did was a lot of the big banks, the China Construction Bank that we work very closely, they had huge amount of these loans. Well, you understand, in the 1990s, China was going through somewhat of a change in the social structure and the financial system. So they encourage companies to be enterprises. So a lot of these companies develop hotels and properties. Banks will own a hotel somewhere. And these hotels are not necessarily the best managed ones. And as a result, then they dilapidated, and of course they don't have enough customers to pay their fees and for them to pay back the banks. And therefore they become non-performing loans. So there are a lot of situations like that.
So now you kick in, right?
No, then Lehman Brothers, because our bank at that time had worked with the U.S. government on the resolution of the savings and loan crisis in the late 80s. So we had a lot of experience. We had a lot of people that are knowledgeable in the area. And we also have the former, there's a government entity called Resolution Trust Corporation. Its head of that corporation was called Bill Seaman. Bill Seaman at one time was the head of the FDIC, which is the federal insurance company for banks. And he retired, he became our consultant. So we got him along in China to talk about how to restructure these financial institutions. Basically, we want China to form an asset management company where all the banks will inject the NPL into this company. We will manage it, we'll sort it out, we'll auction it, get money to come in. And then the government will have to recapitalize these banks. They put in new capital.
Okay.
And then we'll whatever we get from these auctions, we'll give back to the government. Now this is a model that have worked in America very well under the Resolution Trust model. But what happened was the Chinese was very reticent to think about that, mainly because, see, in this process, you have whoever bought the debt will become the owner through a debt to equity transfer.
Okay.
And when they become owner, they will want to close down the non-productive plants, lay off people to reduce the cost, and then that will be a huge social problem for Chinese government.
Yes.
Chinese government don't want layoffs.
It's another chain reaction.
Yeah, another chain reaction.
Another chain reaction.
And the Chinese government came on to power because of workers. And they can't really allow the system to cut workers like that. So they're very reluctant.
Now I started to understand you more, why you came to this great idea of the book. Let's take a very short moment out. I thank you very much for the statement, for the opening statement, which makes exactly who you are. All right. And for me, that's the answer to the question why you wrote this book. Because who you are. Right? Okay. Now, my dear friend, today with me is my good friend from another good friend, Dr. Wei Yang. We're on the big subject of U.S. and China, East and West, the culture concept, the cultural conflict. And as a representing peace, his wonderful book, The Great Wall to Wall Street, Wall to Wall, right? Okay, now, let's take a short moment out. We come back. We would put together his thoughts, my thoughts, see where exactly we can make some sparkle. How about that? So stay with us. Hello, lovely audiences, my dear friends, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West with GNE TV. Today, I'm especially honored because this studio is being visited by a great man of Wall Street, of Hong Kong stock exchange market, and of a book writer to the book of From the Great Wall to Wall of Wall Street, right? Wall to wall. I call it wall to wall. It is wall to wall. Okay, this whole world, though, if you look at it in the right perspective, it is wall to wall, right? Okay. Now, with me today, Dr. Young is sharing his thoughts and his, I would call it half of life experiences with the audiences, right? Thank you for doing that. Just now I said that I started to see who you are now, right? And I started to get the answer to my own question, why you wrote the book.
Right.
The answer is because with your experiences with Lehman Brothers at Wall Street, with your experiences in Hong Kong, all together with your experiences in China,
yes,
helping solving the debt, the non-performing debt,
yeah,
the kind of circle.
right,
Right. So all together, the three working together, that's where you are, and that's how you wrote the book.
right.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
All
yeah.
right, good.
Absolutely. Let me.
I'm a fortune teller.
No, you're absolutely right. Look, when I went to China to work with Lehman Brothers, we came as we have some superior financial technology that we could use to help the Chinese government to solve its system problems. And because we had a lot of experience, U.S. experiences, and we brought to China. The Chinese side, the Ministry of Finance, the various regulators, they were very open. One of the persons we interacted a lot was Zhou Xiaochuan, and at that time he was the president of China.
Zhou Xiaochuan is a big name.
He was, yeah, he was. But at that time he was just, the bank director for China Construction Bank, and he was open to ideas and stuff like that. So we interact quite a bit. But what I sensed was that the Chinese leaders, they are more Chinese than to me, what I consider communist. They're more Chinese in terms of they deal with things. They're very reticent about hurting people in the process. This is very different than, say, what we have here. If you have a bankruptcy in this country, basically you close it down, you pay the wages to the employees, you pay whatever you left, you give it to the creditors, and that's it. And you start anew, start afresh. In China, they rarely do things like that. They want to make sure that you and...
The bankruptcy protection.
This bankruptcy law allowing companies to go bankrupt either voluntarily or involuntarily. But the problem is, in China, people rarely do that because, number one, there's a culture issue, because if you force somebody to go bankrupt, a few years later, they may rise again. But you don't have a customer anymore because you broke that relationship.
Yeah, because they were killed. Yes.
Yeah, and the Chinese relations, even the business contracts, is a reciprocal relationship. You help me, I help you. If you can help me out this time, I help you more.
Yeah, I noticed that you and I have lots of in common, even though you have a high-ranking doctorate and experiences in the financial area. I have none. We have something in common.
Absolutely.
The common area being that we are sensitive to the culture conflict, positively, negatively, regardless.
Yes.
Right? And I went a few lines about this And also on this page that I saved, you're talking about different manners in arranging business.
Yes.
The American way, Chinese
Yes.
way, American way, Chinese way.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. I recommend my dear friends. Where to buy this book?
It's on Amazon.
Not everybody lucky like I am, because I got an autograph. Right? I not only get the book free, I got an autograph, right?
Yeah.
And my camera will give me a close up later, right? Anyway, so where to get it?
Amazon has it.
Amazon
Yes.
has it, right?
Yeah.
Just go check the from the Great Wall to Wall Street.
Yes.
Am I right? Okay, very good.
Thank you.
So back to the point. The point being that you and I, the common part is that I feel the necessity of consider, do I strip myself before I get into water, or do I keep myself the same way I am?
Yeah.
Right? And I believe you exactly said that.
Yes.
Now, putting all the experience together, what is, if you want to give a definition, what is the American way that represents the Western culture? What is the Chinese way that represents the Eastern culture? Please.
Okay. Well, let me try to be.
That's the big answer that I've been looking for the past 6 years.
About 10 years ago, I was traveling, and I bought one of these books in the airport. It was written by a professor in Michigan. His name is Richard Nisbeck. What he wrote this book is that the culture affects people make decisions. What he did was he had a lot of students. He's a social psychologist, very well-known professor, and he took a bunch of students, several hundred students, and some Asians, some Caucasian Asians. You have first generation, second generation, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, and just scrambled through them all. And then he, make them take all kinds of multiple choice questions, like, is this image related to that image? How is it connected? Kind of relationship type of thing. And then he found that there are patterns. Then he unwind these names of these patterns. Oh, the ones who chose this are mostly Caucasians. The one who chose this are mostly Asians. So he was wondering why. Then he went a little bit deeper and said, look, that is probably, and he made a conjecture, because the Asians were Confucian inspired by their family, their education.
Confucius way.
Yeah, Confucius. And then the Westerners, because they're Western, they're Greek. So I read the book, I was so inspired. So I said, look, when I retire, I'm going to write a book like that, but further on his studies. So I communicated with Professor Nisbet. He encouraged me to this process. Now, to go back to your question, I'm sorry I deviated a little bit.
Yeah, but there's a foundation.
The Western thinking, the modern Western thinking, the use of logic, the rule of law, the analytical thinking, the critical thinking, all came from the early Greeks, especially Aristotle. Aristotle is the one, he's the genius. His thoughts permeated the Western thinking until the Middle Age, until the Renaissance. Okay? Logic, mathematics, geography, he had it all. The Chinese thinking, it really goes to the I Ching. I Ching is an ancient book, 3,500 years ago, something, that talks about really how this world works and how man's position in this world related to everything else, to nature. And in it, there's a concept of change. Okay, what makes change? Change comes from being extreme. So if you go one extreme, then you have to go backwards. So the I Ching concept is a circular thing. Okay, it bounces back before extremes. The idea is that a person living in this world has to have a balance. He has to have a balance. Okay, the balance of this side, balance of that side. You choose the middle way. Okay, now that kind of permeated and then became, one branch became Taoism, Lao Tzu Taoism, and the other branch became Confucianism, where Confucius gathered all these thoughts and make it into a Zhujia, the scholarly discipline. And then within all that, it means that there's an order in this world, and a human should live, our society, our human society also should have an order. And order is that the purpose of that is to have a harmony. Now, Western society doesn't think that way because they don't think that there's always changes. That, the new things are better than the old things, and therefore we always go extreme. We gotta find out the extra things that are new and good and all that stuff. So how do you find that? You find it by destroying the old, getting the new. So the Western society has a concept of contest. Almost everything you do in America is a contest. Politics is a contest. You go to the gym.
It's a continuation of the previous.
Yeah. You go to the gym, you have a contest with self and all that stuff. And you have your wife, and sometimes you think they're more like enemies rather than the partners. And so the Western society is full of tension. The tension is because of this old way of thinking that you have to win or lose. You have to right or wrong. You pick one, and then you have to fight.
Yes.
But because in Asia, we don't think.
Yeah,
that
I was thinking quite often though. You're talking about winning and losing, right? So definition of winning, right? You can't just rely upon the numbers, and losing too is the numbers.
Yep.
There's number. Until the end of the day, everything is about numbers. There is we kind of lost control of our way of judgment of winning and losing.
Yes.
So that's the problem.
Yeah.
That is the problem. For example, if you talk about a basketball, and Team A wins, scores 100, Team B scores only 99, of course A is the winner.
Yeah.
Right? So what if it goes to Weiqi, to the goal?
Yeah.
Different story.
Different story. Different story. I think the winning and losing is fair if you define the rules clear enough. And the basketball is well defined. You have a referee. If the referee is fair, then you can have a contest with a score that people can be comfortable with.
Yeah.
But not everything in our lives can be structured like that. Because number one, the rules are not always very clear. Number two, you don't have a referee that knows everything. Let's consider politics. Okay, one side always the Republicans, the Democrats fighting. Okay, this side will take certain facts and use their logic, come up with a conclusion. This side will take another set of facts and use their logic, come to a conclusion. They fight. But they don't. This is not correct because they don't use the same facts, and the fact is only a portion, a subset of the total facts. Nobody can look at the entire thing.
And sometimes people shift the grounds of argument.
Yes.
So they use different quotations, different principles to come to the one point, the same point, yet without recognizing the ground has been shifted already.
Absolutely. I think that's a problem because, one of the reasons for doing these kind of arguments about politics is to appeal to voters. And then you oppose them, they only have a few minutes at a time to watch, and so you appeal to them with very strong languages and appeal to their emotions, and as a result, then they forget what they are supposed to be analyzing or put an opinion on. So this is a problem with our society, the way the political ads come.
Very good. Okay, my dear friends, the more we talk, the more I found that I started to see why I'm confused, why we put up the 6 years of efforts in seeking for the real answer. The real answer, as a matter of fact, is really in ourselves, as how we partake, how we perceive things, situations, issues. With me is my good friend, Dr. Yan. Dr. Wei Yan is an expert in Wall Street with the Lehman Brothers for many, many years, and then to Hong Kong, then to China. And I mean, by playing 3 different playgrounds, though, he has accumulated himself with rich thought that is from the Great Wall to Wall of Street, right? Okay, anyway, let's take a very short moment out. When we come back, I want to come to my question. Should I strip myself before I jump into water? Should I keep my clothes on? Or should I go in between, right? Yes. So We'll take a break. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about the real McCoy. That has been bothering me for quite some time. It is about the Eastern and Western concept. The conflict of the two concepts. I often bother with the fact, for example, a friend told me that that his wife is pregnant. Within 6 months, he will be a father, right? So when I say within 6 months, and the gesture here is 6 months, right? Do I make any conflict? Of course not, right?
No.
Oh. There is an American friend there looking at the gesture, saying that, wow, and be careful, be careful of miscarriage.
Yeah.
He took it as 2 months.
Yeah.
So is it 6 months or 2 months? We are in this, well, to this example, though, simple as this,
Yes.
right? We are taking it for too much for granted. The whole world understands this is 6, not 2.
Yeah.
However, the American way is, okay, that's 2, of course, 1, 2. How come you call it 6?
Yeah.
Right? Conflict starts there. Yeah. So, with my friend, Dr. Yang, Wei Yang, a wonderful human being who has experienced all kinds of big shows in the world. When I say big shows, do you agree or not agree with me that Wall Street is a big show, and Hong Kong stock exchange market is a big show, and then back then in the 1990s or late 90s in China, the triangle debts and the non-functioning loans are big shows, right? That he had been through 3 big shows, and the last big show, the 4th, is his book, From the Great Wall to Wall Street. So once again, back to my show.
Thank you, Jack.
So to my question, to the 6 month, right? Yeah. Right. So as a human being who's been through all the big shows, though, how do you comment? What's your take?
Well, I think there's certainly a difference in perception of expressions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when a Chinese person says something, the traditional Chinese person,
Mm-hmm.
He's always kind of holding back. You know, let's say, you know, your son has gone to got accepted at a wonderful university. So someone will congratulate you and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you would say that no, he's just lucky. You know,
That's just nothing.
Yeah,
That's
nothing. No, please. Of course, you're very proud of it, but you're very lucky.
Mm.
And the Western person will say, yes, he worked hard. He did it all by himself. You know.
Mm.
So it's a very different way of expression. The Chinese way of expression is often unclear. It's unclear for a reason, because when you make things too clear, then you lose meaning.
Right. As a matter of fact, from the bottom of his mind, he would want you to say that, like father, like son, because of you, that your son is so successful.
That's right.
That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah, that's bottom line.
And then I say, nah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
He's only lucky.
But if he doesn't say it, then you feel kind of like, you know,
You're right.
lose face.
Okay?
Yeah.
Right. And somebody say, your wife is beautiful.
Yeah.
And the Americans would say, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I would look around and say, what do you mean?
Yeah, right.
What do you mean?
Right.
What do you want?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, I agree.
That is, but I think it goes deep into a philosophical background. See, if you look at the Dao De Jing, you know, the Lao Tzu's Taoism, in the first chapter it says, the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. See, the things you can explain is not the true thing. This is really confusing. Why is that so? Because when you explain something, you put the parameters on something, then you always lose the other meanings, because that thing becomes how you define it. Because other things are gone. You don't.
Exactly.
But this is, you know, and that's a reason for that. Because unless you're pretty damn sure that you are focusing on the right thing. If you study microbiology, you look in the microscope, you see a cell, okay, fine. But in other things in this world, you can't really corner all the parameters.
By definition only.
Yeah. Your definition creates your answer. That's the problem.
And I found it very interesting. You not only say it, and practically you put it in writing. So on this book, this page I saved from 258 to 259, those tables, can you please let my audiences understand what exactly you're talking about?
Okay, let me just, the subtitle of this book is called A Cross-Cultural Look at Leadership and Management in China and the U.S. Okay. Leadership and Management in China and the U.S. Right. So I go through all the background, cultural and philosophical background of the two people, and the conflicts they have and the issues that they see. And I go, in the last chapter, was chapter 14, I summarize it. Okay, the Western side, US for example, are very analytical. They're looking for why. The Chinese side are holistic thinkers. They're looking at how. How do you do things? Okay, they don't really care. Chinese people are very practical people.
Why and how?
Yeah, they just want to get things done. They don't really care whether it has a foundation or not. This is the Westerners want to make sure.
Did I ask you how you came upon the idea of writing a book, or how did you write the book?
I came out with the ideas when I was interacting with Chinese leaders in the corporate.
Yeah, I was asking you why. Yes.
Government. And I realized they don't always do things that we, as Western Chinese person, would do. And I think that there's a cultural reason behind it. So I spent a lot of time trying to think about it and do research and talk to people. And I realized that they have their own way of doing things. Why is it China, despite all these financial imbalances in China, all these last 2-3 decades, never had a financial crisis? Never had a financial crisis. In 1997, Asia financial crisis, China had no problem. In 2008, the world recession, and the world was basically fell apart. China had no problem. Why isn't China such a backward, unsophisticated financial system and we're able to handle all these problems?
We're not involved.
Yeah.
Was not even involved.
Right.
Good.
Well,
that's a good question.
How did they stand out to be? In fact, the country was growing. While the other countries
was exempted.
Yeah.
Was somehow exempted. They're little something.
Yeah.
But on the majority, China was exempted.
Exempted. Yeah.
And how would China be exempted? That's a good question. In the more profound layer.
Yeah. Exactly. That got me thinking. Look, maybe they're doing something right, And I think the Western way of thinking, like we said earlier, there's a black and white. The white will have to triumph over the black, and then the consequences will be felt by only those two parties. But it's not true.
I'll give you something. I'll ask you something. Just correct me as one of your students, because I've never been in the class of finance.
Right.
I can only count $2. That's the maximum. That's it. Okay, now, we see shows on a stage, variety shows.
Right.
Sometimes the three of the Joker kind of performers wearing two hats, right? And they stand in a circle, started by A grabs the hat from B, put it on his head, and B, vice versa, does the same to C, and C in the back goes to A. And then they do faster. At the time, you see, as a matter of fact, 3 hats instead of 2. Right. So now, does that describe the American way of thinking? Thinking connected to visual. Right. To me, I sit there, I tell myself, no matter how fast you guys spin, I know there are 2 hats. That's it. I close my eyes, and you have 2 hats. So who is doing the right thing, or who is doing the wrong thing, and how? This time I'm asking how.
Well, I think what you're saying in this is illusion.
Illusion.
illusion perpetrated by the people that put on the act. Now, some say the whole thing about finance is also illusion.
Illusion. That's why I came with this example.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's actually something more fundamental about finance, because finance is about producing more things than you had before. And the finance, that's economics. The finance will help people realize that problem, that encourage people to go and make more things more valuable than you had before. And therefore, that benefit, which will benefit whoever invests in it, and that's a capitalist system. And finance is that component of the whole economic system that makes this process more fluent, more equitable. So finance itself is just a tool of economics. So now there are things that somehow, because of spinning a few times, looking bigger and bigger, those are more illusions. I think people talk about blockchain and then the virtual currency, the cryptocurrencies. You can look at it that way too, because this. Some ways, there's a role for cryptocurrency to play, because anything that has a finite circulation, that's hard to come by, that's verifiable, has some value. Okay, that is whatever like piece of antique.
I see.
Okay?
I see.
Gold. Now the value, however, of a cryptocurrency is placed by whoever is invested in it. Okay, and whoever uses it. Now, so some of the coins that's out there, like Bitcoin and stuff like that, because there's a limited circulation. Bitcoin is the oldest cryptocurrency, and it has, because it's been around for 10 years or so, and its process of mining is very complicated and very time-consuming. So there's a value. You can say that, what is the value of Bitcoin? Okay, now you have to invest in this machine. You have to invest in people. You have to spend so many hours and spending all the electricity to mine this coin. So by putting all the costs together, so the coin is worth at least that much.
That's the value.
At least minimum that much.
Okay.
So you go and produce a fruit. Okay, you spend the fertilizer, spend the seed, and then people tending it, and herbicide and all that stuff. So then it's orange. Okay, this orange, minimum you have to sell above the cost you pay to grow it, and that's the value. Okay, minimum value. Okay. Of course, if everybody flood the market and no one wants it, then your oranges go to nothing. But same thing can happen to Bitcoin.
All right. Okay.
So,
and in other words, it does have the capital value in it, right? And yet it does not reject the fact that is an illusion too.
Yeah, that is.
Or combined.
Unfortunately, a coin, a Bitcoin, a cryptocurrency such as a Bitcoin, and used in commerce is so new. And there are some governments that are really reluctant to certify that. Okay, number one, they have no control. This is the biggest problem, because if you have a U.S. dollar, this is printed by the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve. And the government is very careful how much money they print, because number one, if you print too much, you have inflation. You print too little, you don't have enough circulation. So they're very careful about that. They look at all these issues, the parameters, how much money to borrow, how much money to spend on infrastructure. They look at all these things and decide, okay, well, maybe we should have more dollar in circulation than less. So it's a very deliberate process of the dollar.
In other words, if somebody provided the security and the guarantee for the institutions to go ahead, the institutions would likely to go for it.
I think that you can say that the institution that what are the institutions? These are the banks and then the trading firms and all various exchanges. They would go for these cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, especially when U.S. dollar disconnected from gold, though, the dollar itself is kind of a token, too.
Yeah, it is. Ever since the 1974, when Nixon cancel the connection to gold standard. So the dollar's kind of floating all through these decades.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. And I can't say it bad because we are the U.S. So we print U.S. dollars, and U.S. dollars is the largest currency in the world. It's reserve currency by most major central banks. So when you do commerce in the world, whether it's commodities and the machines, and you quote U.S. dollars. So we can print that money.
It's a reality issue.
It's a reality issue.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we've got a bigger issue to talk about. Well, I really believe that the U.S., China, East-West, that different cultures, U.S. and China, stand for worth some recognition. So stay with us. Good or bad, positive or negative, they are there. All right. With Dr. Yang, I'm going the first class of my financial training. All right. Okay. All right. Stay with us. All right. Jack Shaw will be with you. So. Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East-West. I'm very happy today that we finally got this big subject handled in a very easy way. A friend of mine, Dr. Yang, happens to be an expert in Wall Street, in the Hong Kong exchange market, and also in China, with a group of his helping, from Lehman Brothers, helping China with the debt issue. So altogether, the experiences are kind of sorted out. And this book was written by Dr. Yang, The Great Wall to Wall, Wall Street. So it's wall to wall, all right, okay. Between the walls, I see your red wall and blue walls though. Between walls, there are lots of conflict, lots of talking about. Especially lately, we have just heard about the discussion. It started with the word, quote unquote, tariff war.
Yes.
And then it is kind of degraded to trade conflicts, right? And then to trade disagreements, so on and so forth, right? And kind of stepping down, which is good to us. Yeah. What's your comment about the conversation, discussions we had just witnessed?
Well, I think you heard recently the Treasury Secretary, Mr. Mnuchin, indicate that we're going to put on hold the sanctions, the tariffs against Chinese imports. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a very good outcome. Now, if you step back...
Good to who? To China or to the U.S. only?
To both sides.
To both
sides, yeah.
Okay.
No one wants a trade war because war doesn't solve problems today. You know, our world is so connected, and especially two largest economic entities. If there's a war, everybody else gets damaged. Right. So, besides the people in these two countries, so war should be eliminated. Now, although you step back a month or two, when the U.S. threatened with China with the tariffs on $150 billion of merchandise and all that stuff. So, but this is typical Western way of doing things. They throw out the harshest demands and then they step down slowly. And the Chinese, of course, don't do things like that. They felt, look, wait a minute, our president and your president have been good friends. So how come you throw this at me? Yeah, yeah. And so, but that's that's understanding their different styles. Okay. Now Trump is very clever. He uses his Congress, the Commerce Department with Wilbur Ross and some of the other pretty hawkish members to demand a lot from China. Well, their calculation is very simple, that we have this trade deficit with China, several hundred, about 370 billion a year with China. We can't really do that. They have to buy more from us, and they have to let us sell more to them, or whatever. So there are reasons behind that, and I think some of them is fair. Some of these comments are fair. When China first joined the WTO in year 2000, it had a lot of restrictions for foreign companies going into China. For example, setting up wholly owned companies that do certain businesses to financial institutions. They had reasons to exclude that because China was a very fragile base. If foreign companies came in at that time, they would dominate everything.
Yeah, you're right.
So, but today it's no longer the same. From 2000 to today, China's GDP went up 8 times. So China's today economy is a lot stronger.
You're talking about 18 years later.
Yeah, yeah, 8 to 9 times. So it's just incredible. So the financial institution is bigger. The largest 4 banks in the world are Chinese banks. ICBC, Bank of China, China Construction and Agriculture Bank.
Yeah.
The largest bank in the U.S. is J.P. Morgan. It's the 5th largest bank in the world. So, China's is a lot stronger today. So it can handle some challenges. So I think that it's about time that China opened up some of these.
And then in return, there are benefits they're waiting.
Yeah.
Right? And they're thinking about opening some new areas for exporting.
Yeah.
Right. So that's good. Okay, back to your great book though. Yeah. We're talking about the Eastern way, Chinese way, and Western way, which is American way comparison. I'm very interested in the comparison, talking about asking why and how.
Yeah.
Right. Go ahead. What's next?
Yeah, okay. Next one I said is the Western way is an adversarial way. Our system in the U.S. adversarial is contest-based. Okay, and adversarial. Then I look at you. I look at your weak points. I look for differences. Okay, differences between you and I. So that becomes blown up. Okay. In the Chinese way, it's consensual. So you look for similarities, look for the common ground.
All right, okay.
The middle way. Okay. Now, in the Western way, it's individualistic, driven by personal responsibility. In the Chinese way, it's group-based, driven by group mandate.
Group mandate?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
For the family.
Okay.
Family or your clan, your clan or your province or your city.
Stop right there a little bit. Going back into history, though, the mankind history started with groups, with the tribes, right? Because they were too weak to stand on their own.
Right.
They have to stay in a group to fight together to prevent from dying, right?
Right.
Okay, now, from that on and on and on, I can sit in my own room without worry that I be being eaten by a wall, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, now, it is going from group to individualization. Am I right when the human evolution is concerned?
Well, the individualization is well, if you look at it's a Western concept. Okay, it's not the Chinese. Chinese really doesn't have a word for individuals. Okay, it's a Western concept, and it has both Greek and Christianity reasons background. In the Old Testament, in Genesis, you see that God created Adam using clay in his own image. So, and then he created Eve from a rib bone of Adam. So there's one person first, and then his companion. So they don't say that we create the entire tribe.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's very individualistic. And then of course, when you come to this country, then our Constitution guarantees that every individual has a right to pursue happiness. Okay? So individual becomes an overwhelming mission for everybody.
All right. Okay.
So we go pursue what we like, but the problem is
from evolution, from constitution, from conception.
Right.
Okay.
But
All
the
three
problem
ways,
is individuals often are driven by animalistic instincts. What we like to eat a lot of food, good food, greasy food. Why do we like greasy food? Because when we were, millions of years ago,
winter time.
Yeah, because our genetics made us feel like we need to have that because to store energy.
Sure.
Okay, and now we still eat that. Okay, but this
we
is
reserve lots of female partners possible for reproduction.
Right. That's all part of our human instinct. But somehow in this culture, we become like freedom. We have freedom to pursue this, freedom to pursue that. But it's really not. It's actually genetics.
Does that also mean we're kind of fast forwarding ourselves, right? Because we have limited time. Does that also mean that the more individualized a society, the more advanced the level?
Not necessarily.
Can we say that, or can we just guess that?
I don't think you can say that. It depends how you judge that. I mean, we have lots of issues in this country. A lot of things that I think is gone overboard. I don't think we need to have that. Actually, we need to think about
And exactly religion. Right? We are moving too fast. Probably we'll take some time to schedule next show. Okay, next show is popping up already. Okay, now, and you can see the religion push. For example, Buddhism encourage people to face a wall, to say that I'm isolated with this colorful world. I don't care what you care. I just want my next life to be better than this, right? Okay. Now, when a Christian, I'm not criticizing by that. Oh, by the way, a declaration from I'm a disclaimer. My disclaimer: whatever I say represents myself, personal point of view. Nothing to do with the show, and neither does it with the GNE or EDI. No, my personal, right? I'm talking about Christianity calls upon people to join hands, to walk into the community, to see what can be done. Whereas it reverses the whole thing that you face a wall, sit there, blah, 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 blah. So by calling different ways, what can we say? Have you compared these in your book?
I didn't talk about religion or politics in this book. Mostly culture. I think the Buddhism, around the 5th century BC, you have Buddhism, you have in China you have Confucianism, and then in Greek you have the Socrates and all that. These are the actual cultures. Somehow they all came up at the same time. Yeah, of course, Buddhism is a very valid religion. It tells people to control the desires, right? Control the desires.
Both my parents were that way. Both my parents were. Yeah. But I'm just talking about on a comparison basis. Yeah. What cause makes more sense? What does it the hard way?
I think all religions make sense.
Make sense.
Yeah, right? for the individuals and
And it looks like we do have to schedule another show. We are way over time, yet we haven't touched about a quarter of it. With Dr. Yan, I'm having a good time. I swear to God, I'm having a good time today because there are lots of subjects that I want to talk about. I just need a partner to go along with, right? Dr. Yan be the one. And we thank you very much for watching. And to Dr. Yan, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, very good.